Hello, everyone. You are listening to For Those We Lost. I'm your host, Jennifer Sullivan. Thank you for being here. If you've lost a loved one to COVID and would like to share your story on the show, please send me an email. My email address is forthosewelostpodcast@gmail.com, or go to the website forthosewelostpodcast.com and click on the contact button, and you can reach me that way as well. In this show, people share their stories of losing a loved one to COVID. Each of these stories is heartbreaking, inspiring, and honest. We are candid about how hard it is to move on from our grief, how we relive the events leading up to our loved one's death, and the difficulties in carrying this loss with us through the political turmoil happening in the world right now and in the face of people who don't believe COVID is real. You may hear things in our stories that make you cry, and you may hear things that make you angry. You'll hear people talk about their political beliefs, and you may not agree. You'll also hear people talk about the vaccine, and you may not agree. But I hope you'll keep listening. I hope you'll stay to the end of this episode and realize that each person who openly shares here has experienced deep grief over the loss of a loved one. And that's something we will all experience. We all love someone. We will all lose someone we love, and we will all grieve. These are the stories of those we lost to COVID. Thanks for being here with me today. I have a great show for you. Today I'm going to be talking to Rosie in Texas. Rosie tells us her story of losing her mother to COVID last May and how she turned that grief into a beautiful memorial for her mother and how that became a worldwide movement. Rosie is the founder of the Yellow Heart Memorial, a global space for everyone around the world to come together and remember their loved ones lost to COVID. All the information on the Yellow Heart Memorial is in the show notes below. And with that, I'd like to welcome Rosie to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So what I'd like to do to start is go back to March of 2020 and talk about when you first heard about COVID and when the lockdown started at your mom's facility and sort of go into what happened.
So I'm sure I'm not the only person that was watching COVID when it first started in Wuhan. Um, I really started to get scared when it officially came to the United States in March, because the first that I had seen when it did get here, it was in Washington, and it started to affect people in a nursing home. And so that really, really got me scared because my mom was in a nursing home. And so staying glued to the TV to see where where the virus was spreading and how fast it was spreading throughout our own nation. And then it finally hit the Dallas metro. My mom's nursing home went into lockdown in March. And so, like thousands of other families, we were restricted from seeing our loved one and physically. We had to see them with a piece of glass dividing us from our loved ones. So here in my area, there was no mask mandate at the time, and so I was really scared for my mom's safety. With there not being a mask mandate, employees could come in and out and there's no telling who they were exposed to. But us as families, we were not allowed to go in there to check on our family members. So fast forward, May 9th, I had a phone call with my mother, and she seemed to be very confused. My mom did have early on onset dementia,
Mhm.
but I was already familiar with those symptoms and how my mom acted. This was a different phone call for me. She was, she kept repeating she did not know where she was, if I knew where she was. She did have assistance with that phone call. And so when we got off the phone call, I asked the person assisting her, is it me or does she seem, a little more confused than she usually is? And which at that point they agreed with me. I thought maybe she had just, had a bad day, or maybe this was lack of sleep. So I kind of let it go. May 10th was Mother's Day. And so me and my family prepared to go see my mom, and we had already scheduled to go see her around 1:30 p.m. Usually when my mom knows that we're all going to go see her, she's really excited. She wants to look her best. She puts, on her clothes and wants to brush her hair and look presentable for when we go see her. And so me and my family arrived at the nursing home at 1:30, and they wheeled my mom to the front window of the facility, and my mom was still in her pajamas, which I thought was very unusual. I expected to see her dressed up and pretty and with a smile on her face, excited to see us. Um, but when they brought her to the window and, she wasn't very like she didn't respond to us the way that she usually does. She was just kind of there. She had a mask on underneath her chin, so it wasn't even placed over her nose or her mouth. Um, One of the aides came to the door and got the gifts from us, and so we watched to see her, to
Mhm.
watch her unwrap her gifts. And that right there was another huge change in my mother. Usually she was tearing through gifts just to see what she got, and at this point, she could not even lift a gift herself. Like she couldn't, handle it herself. So the aide assisted her. And as she was looking through the gifts, she was almost in a daze. I remember pearls were my mom's favorite, and so we got her a glass jewelry box, and it was full of pearl bracelets.
Oh.
Um, and my mom took the bracelets out, and she just held them, and she just looked at them. She didn't look back up at us. She didn't say thank you or anything. Usually she would have put them right on, and that's not what happened. She just stared at them as if she didn't know what they were.
Hmm.
So the nurse took them from her and put them back in the bag, and we went on to the next gift, and it was the same each time. And so we were trying to talk to my mom, and when we go to visit my mom, like they would put us on an iPad so that she could communicate with us, and I would have to get on my iPhone.
Mhm.
Um, and so my mom, we kept having to tap on the glass to get her attention, and she was just really spaced out that whole time that we were there. Um, so I leaned up against the window, and I told my mom, hey, mom, we're going to go ahead and go to your room so that I can call you and we could talk on the phone. And so she looked at me and I started to cry. And she told me, "Don't cry." Um, when I drove back home, I called my mom's room. She did not answer the phone, and so I called the nurses station, and I asked them if my mom was maybe wheeling herself down the hallway or if she was maybe talking to one of the other residents. Um, the nurse told me no. She said she's actually still at the window. And I said, "What is she still doing at the window?" Usually my mom was capable of wheeling herself around the nursing home.
Mhm.
So the nurse told me, I'm going to go get her and I will wheel her to her room. So that was another flag for me. So they got her to her room and I called back and she answered the phone and she kept telling me, "I'm just so tired. I'm so exhausted. Like I just want to lay down." And she said, "I'm not going to be able to put all of my gifts up. I don't even know, what I got." And I said, "Mom, it's okay if you're tired, go ahead and lay down, take a nap. Maybe you'll feel better after your nap." And so my mom slept for the rest of the day. Um, the next day, I called her and it was still the same. She was really weak, couldn't get out of bed. I called the nursing home and I brought my concerns to the nurse's station. I said, "I think that there's something going on with my mom. She's not acting right. She hasn't been acting right for the past couple of days. Can you please make sure that she gets checked out? Because I'm pretty concerned." So they assured me that they were going to have somebody check my mom out, which I don't know if that was ever done. I'm guessing that it was not. So I called her back that day, and she didn't answer the phone. And so um, I thought, I guess I'm just gonna let her rest. Like she's just tired. She's really tired. She's exhausted. So on the 12th of May, I called my mom's room. She didn't answer the phone. And at this point, I was like, okay, my mom probably needs to go to a hospital.
Mhm.
So I called, she didn't answer. I called the nurse's station and they went into her room and they told me to call back. So when they went into her room and I called back, they picked up the phone and I could hear the nurse trying to wake my mom up. And she kept saying, "Mary, Mary, your daughter's on the phone, Mary. She wants to talk to you." And all I could hear was my mom moaning in the background. They could not wake my mom up. And so she got back on the phone and she said, "Well, your mom is just really tired. We're going to let her sleep. You need to call her back, like try back in a couple of hours, and then, she should be up." And I said, "Okay." Well, I called back a couple hours later and my mom still did not answer the phone. So again, I called the nursing home and I said, "My mom is still not picking up. I'm very, very concerned about her. She needs to see a doctor. She needs to see somebody." Um, at that point, they told me they were going to have a nurse go in and assess her. And the nurse told me to go ahead and call back to her room. She was going to answer the phone again and try and get my mom on the phone. So again, I called and she picked up the phone on her end. And again, they had trouble waking my mom up.
Hmm.
At this point, I told them to please call 911 and that I was on my way to the nursing home. And I told them when I get to the nursing home, the ambulance better be there ready to pick up my mom.
Mhm.
So I jumped in my car and I drove to the nursing home, which was about 10 minutes from where I lived. When I drove up, there was nobody there. Um, There was no ambulance, nothing. So I got off my car and I went and I knocked on the door, and then the aide came to the door and I said, "Where is the ambulance at?" And she said, "Well, the nurse is on the phone with the doctor." And I said, "My mom needs attention now. Like, we can't wait."
Mm-hmm.
Um, so at that point, I called 911 myself,
Wow.
and they came to pick up my mom. When she got to the hospital, she was running a temperature of 102. She was still very confused. They immediately isolated her because automatically they thought she had COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they did a test on her, which came back negative, and they still were like, we're still going to keep her isolated. She's showing some of the symptoms of COVID, so we just want to be on the safe side. So they went ahead and admitted her to the COVID floor. They did a chest X-ray, which showed that she had pneumonia in one of her lungs. So they did a second COVID test, which also came back negative. And her O2 sats started dropping. They ended up putting her on just the nasal cannula to begin with. The following day, they did a third COVID test, and it also came back negative.
Wow.
So because she was still having symptoms, showing symptoms of COVID, same thing. They were giving her the same treatment, treating her as a COVID patient. So they did another chest X-ray. The pneumonia had spread to the other lung. And then at this point, they did a fourth COVID test, and it came back positive.
Hmm.
Um, at this point, my mom was taken off of the nasal cannula and she was put on a BiPAP machine. Um, and May 16th, I got a phone call from the doctors, and they told me that they knew my mom was a DNR, but that I needed to make sure 100% from my mom that she would want to be a DNR and not be put on a ventilator. So I called my mom and I had a conversation with her, and I said, "Mom," I said, "I need to know 100%, if you get worse, do you want to be put on a ventilator?" And she said, "No,
Hmm.
absolutely not." She said, "I don't want to suffer. Um, I don't want to be put on life support." And I said, "Okay." So I said, "I just need to know this because, a BiPAP machine is the last thing that they can do for you, um, because you are a DNR."
Mhm.
So my mom went into a conversation and she asked me if there was anything that I wanted to say to her. And I did. And I said, "Mom, I just want you to know that I love you very much. I thank you for being the mom you have been to us. You were a single mother that put herself through nursing school, and you set a very good example for me and my siblings. You've always been a woman of strong faith, and I just want you to know that I love you, and I'm just proud of everything that you've done." And she responded and she said, "I love you," and I also, told her I'm sorry for all the arguments we've ever had and all the crap that I put her through. And she, was like, "Well, that's all been forgiven. I love you." And she said, "I want to thank you for being the daughter that you have been to me. I'm very proud of all of your accomplishments." And the last thing that my mom said is, she said, "When you get to heaven, we will look for each other."
Hmm.
And, you know, my mom had been through so much. My mom lost her leg due to diabetes. My mom had 3 open heart surgeries. And so we've had these conversations before, you
Mhm.
know, And so I thought this was one of these conversations. So the 17th of May, I got a phone call from the doctor. He said that my mom had taken a turn for the worse that night and that it did not look good at all and that I needed to probably start calling my family. They were going to try and give my mom convalescent plasma, and I went ahead and approved them to try and do that. So they started the orders. They tried to find a match for her, which they did find a match for her. Um, and then at 4 o'clock p.m., I got a phone call, and I was like, "Okay, we're all hopeful. The whole family's like, okay, this is gonna work. Like, this is, she's gonna be okay." Um, the phone call that I received at 4 p.m. was to let me know that my mom passed away at 3:45. Um, she did not get to she did not get the plasma. She did not make it to get the plasma. So after my mom passed away, they reassured us that we could see my mom, which that did not happen either. They said that because she might still be contagious, that they wanted us to have her cremated. And so we did not get a chance to see my mom at all the whole time she was in the hospital. Um, my mom's ashes did not come to us until a month after she died because of the high numbers of deaths that were occurring in the Dallas area. And so, I had to find a way to deal with my grief. I had to put my grief into action. And so that's where Yellow Heart Memorial comes in. They, I wanted the world to know how great of a person my mom was. I did not want my mom's memory or my mom as a person herself to be drowned out by these numbers that we hear in the media every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the most important thing to me after my mom passed away.
Yeah. Yes. So I want to ask you a few questions and then definitely come back to the Yellow Heart Memorial. Um, so you were able to visit your mom at the window at the nursing home and have video calls. Did you, um, you, I know that you had mentioned to me that they didn't wear masks at the beginning, and even your mom on Mother's Day, when you saw her, had a mask around her chin. Was the window open or closed?
No, it was actually closed. It was just a big viewing window
Mm,
that they had in their lobby. And so that's where they would bring her.
yeah.
And then they would put her on the iPad.
So the mask was more for the inside of the facility for her when she was interacting with other people.
Yes.
Did you have a conversation or many conversations with the director of the facility and ask questions? And were arbitrary everywhere. They there were rules for people who work there. My frustration, always like yours, was they could go in and work, but you and I couldn't go in. And uh, it didn't make a lot of sense to me either. I was on the phone almost every day. Were you on the phone often to the facility asking questions and seeing when you could go in?
So my communication the whole entire time that this was going on was with the actual social worker.
Mm,
And that was because I did call and I did try to reach out to the DON and the ADON. Um, the DON, I actually was left on hold for like over an hour,
wow.
and she never got on the phone. And I called back, and then the ADON got on the phone, And she reassured me that my mom was perfectly fine. She's like, I went in there, I checked on her. She is perfectly fine. You have nothing to worry about. So, several times I asked the social worker, are you guys taking the proper precautions? What are you guys doing to ensure the safety of these residents? And she reassured me. She said, we're going to test all the residents. We have them all in their rooms. We are social doing like the social distance. We're making sure that they're wearing masks. So with that being said, in March, and the very beginning of April, my mom's birthday was April the 9th. And me and my family took a fruit tray and we took presents to my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had asked them if they could send me a picture of my mom when they were going to do like a little happy birthday to her. And the pictures that they sent me were very disturbing. It was a cafeteria full of residents. There was no socially distanced. No one was socially distanced. There was not one of the residents wearing a mask.
Hmm.
The only person in those pictures that were wearing a mask was one of the nurses, and that was it. So from the conversation that I had with the social worker to the pictures that I got, I knew right then and there they were not taking any precautions at all.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't surprise me that my mom contracted the virus from one of the employees.
Yeah. Were there other cases at her facility?
I'm more than sure there was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when this happened to my mom, and I conversated with the social worker, she told me that there was 5 people in isolation. They had made an isolation hall, and so she told me there was 5 people in there, but they were having no symptoms at all.
Mm. Okay. Do you know if they ever did COVID test the employees or the residents there?
She told me they tested all of the residents and that my mom was one of the ones that came back negative.
Okay. And then, have you had a funeral or any kind of memorial for your mom?
So we had a memorial for my mom in June after she passed away, which was nothing like we expected, of course. We had very few people there. Um, it was just something simple and quick because of all of the restrictions. And so a proper funeral, proper memorial, we have not had that for my mom yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we haven't done that for my mom either at all. I wanted to ask you cuz when I talk to people like I'm not yet at a year since my mom passed away, but you are. Did you experience um like a countdown or any sort of flashbacks to, oh, on this day I was doing this, this was the last day I saw my mom? Did you go through that kind of thing leading up to the anniversary of when she passed away?
Yes, all of it. Because my start date was Mother's Day.
Mm-hmm.
On Mother's Day, that was the last day that I would see my mom's face. So, everything replayed out like every day, every moment, until the day that I got the phone call. I had to go through all of that again.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I have a hard time wrapping my head around this because it was just like so mishandled. Um, and I think I have these thoughts of regret, like should I have gone and should I have taken my mom out of this nursing home to protect her?
Mm-hmm.
Would she have been safer in my care? These are the things that play out in my mind. But yeah, that whole week, it was exactly a week after Mother's Day that she died. So from Mother's Day is when everything started for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm already feeling it, and it's only June, and my mom passed away in August. Um,
Yeah.
I think a lot of it for me is I complained so much, and there were so many things I saw leading up to it that I even now I think the same thing. And in July of last year, my sister and I had talked about taking my mom out and how we would do that and what it would look like.
Hmm.
And then we thought, well, let's just revisit it after her birthday, and then she passed away about a month ish after her birthday. So, um, I know one other thing that we talked about, you had said that you got a lawyer and had looked at suing the facility, and then you told me that you had a case going to federal court. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you're doing?
Yeah. So, we actually filed a lawsuit with her nursing home for neglect, for number one, them not calling 911, or not getting her medical attention when we asked them on several different occasions to have her looked at by a doctor.
Mhm.
So, very interesting things that I actually found out yesterday. So we thought that my mom's case going to federal court was going to be a good thing, because in the beginning it was a good thing, because Texas was the only state, one of the only states, where they don't have immunity
Mhm.
for these nursing home, cases. Well, I found out yesterday that Texas passed their law for immunity last week. So now my lawyers are fighting to get her case out of federal court.
Hmm.
So, yeah, this has been it was like a bomb just dropped on us, and on top of losing my mom, here we are. And it's unfortunate that our nursing homes are regulated by the federal government,
Mhm.
because we can call and we can report all of the wrongdoing that we see. But when they go in there and as the state to investigate, they never find anything wrong.
Yeah.
And I can see that. I can see why. So now my lawyers are in another battle. They are now trying to get my mom's case out of federal court, because of Texas passing this law last week.
Yeah. Yeah, I think almost every state has done something like that. I know that's my problem here. I've talked to 3 lawyers, and each one of them say they're so sorry, and they try to help, and they listen to me talk about it, and even admit that things were not done correctly. But in Oregon, they passed an immunity law pretty early on. And
Yeah.
there's also some other legislation here that makes it incredibly difficult to
Mhm.
take a wrongful death case or any kind of case like that against a nursing home to court. So
Yeah.
I'm I feel that frustration because you're trying to do something for your mom. You're trying to, after the fact, say, "Hey, this wasn't okay," and get some sort of justice for her. And at every turn, it gets
Mhm.
taken away from you.
Right. Yeah. So, with the platform that I have, if we are not successful
Mhm,
in what we're doing for this court case, I will use my platform and I will be very vocal against these nursing homes.
mhm,
I will go as far as I have to, and do as many, if we got to team up with the 175,000 other families that have lost somebody to COVID in a nursing home, and, you know, do this together,
mhm.
um, and get this to, legislation or something. I'm not going to stop. I'm
Yeah,
not going to stop, because there's too many people that I now know and I now consider family, that have gone through this same tragic loss that I have. And it's not fair that they were the vulnerable population. They couldn't defend themselves. They were not like us, that we all we had to do was a simple act of putting a mask on. That
Mhm.
was it. And they couldn't do that. You've got people that had Alzheimer's, you have people that have dementia, that can't think on their own, and they depend on these employees at a nursing home to take care of them, because that's what they're paid for. They're
Yeah.
paid to take care of them, and that is part of their duty, especially when you're in a pandemic. Like, I just can't wrap my head around that. I can't understand that. And I worked in a nursing home myself at the very beginning of my career. Like, I had to do clinicals at a nursing home. So I know what it feels like to work in a nursing home. And I know that in our on our hall alone, we made sure that all of our residents were taken care of. We made sure they all had baths. We all made sure that they were on a time for changing. There's a way to run these nursing homes, and
Mhm.
it's the lack of training, it's the lack of care. Um, so I think that plays a big role in it too.
Yeah.
And the way that it was handled through this pandemic was, they didn't handle it properly.
No.
And that might all go back to the nursing homes not having enough PPE, because they were not provided enough equipment, just like our hospitals were not provided enough equipment to take the proper precautions that they needed.
Mhm. And I also I experience a lot of frustration at I went to see my mom often, and not every single day because sometimes I couldn't, but I went in there, so she walked around with me, and we
Mhm.
talked, and I was able to touch her and cut her hair, and, I was an active caregiver for her, and really the only familiar face that you went to see her as often as I did, because she had Alzheimer's, so she thought I was a nice lady that came to visit her, but at that point, I don't think she knew I was her daughter most of the time. And
Yeah,
then, when they locked those doors, our caregiving rights, like yours and mine, they just sort of disappeared,
mm,
and we were forced to trust the people who work there to do their best and care for our loved ones.
exactly.
And the training that they had, I think the turnover, I noticed a lot of turnover in the months since the pandemic started at my mom's place. I think,
Mhm.
I think it was, a heavy heart for some of them, and they just ended up having to leave, or, not being able to do it, or maybe even having some fear over COVID. But there was a lot of turnover and really no practices for how new employees were gonna be introduced into the environment. No tests, at least not in Oregon. I'm not sure about training, but I know that they didn't test everybody at my mom's facility until they actually had COVID in the building. They'd
Yeah,
never once tested anybody ahead of time or any new employees. And that's something that seemed to me like should be, um, just a given, that you would test new employees before they started working somewhere.
exactly. Yep, and I agree. Yeah, so now we're going through this battle, and now we're going up against the state,
Hmm.
and so it's going to be something that's, it's unfortunate. That's all I'm going to say. Is it's just so unfortunate that they view our parents as, they're disposable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They just lock them away. And then when it was clear that their practices and policies weren't working, nobody in a position of power did anything to change it. All of us, you and I, were like, "Hey, this isn't working," but
Hmm.
there was no higher up or place we could go where anybody would say, "Oh, okay, let's change how we're doing things because it's not working." That's one of the most frustrating things for me. So, one of the things that you did was you started this Yellow Heart Memorial. So, why don't you talk about that and talk about how that started?
Yeah, so when I found a Facebook support group, I learned really quick that the yellow heart was becoming the symbol of COVID. We
Mhm.
did not have a ribbon. There was no, it wasn't like cancer where you've got breast cancer is a pink ribbon or, and so the yellow heart itself, the symbol, was created by a young lady named Hannah in the UK that lost her grandmother to COVID. So in the UK, they put symbols on stuff. And her grandfather, when they lost her grandmother, her grandfather said, we need to put something yellow on our door or our window or the sidewalk to let people know that we have been affected by COVID.
Mhm.
And so she asked her grandfather, well, what do you want me to put? What symbol? And they came up with the yellow heart, right? So they put a yellow heart in their window. And when people started finding out, like, hey, like we lost to COVID too. So they started putting hearts in their windows. So the symbol was just the symbol. Like
Mhm.
it wasn't personal. It was just this is the symbol to let you know that we have lost somebody to COVID. Well, when it came to the United States, I learned about it, losing my mom, and I first had my first memorial in my backyard. I teamed up with a young lady by the name of Hannah Ernst. She's from New Jersey. She's 16 years old. She drew a silhouette of her grandfather after he died of COVID. And her mom thought it would be a good idea to put it on our Facebook support group. And so immediately everybody was like, can you please draw my loved one? And so she drew a picture of my mom. My mom is the famous picture of her having a birthday crown and her little birthday
Mhm.
shawl. So everybody knows her by her crown and shawl.
Mhm.
And so I participated in a week of mourning and I asked Hannah and her mom if I could use her art for my memorial. And they were like, absolutely, like, we love it. And so I did a memorial in my backyard and it got a really big response. It got like over 3,000 views, like by the time we were off of the Facebook Live.
Wow.
And so I wanted to do more. I was like, I only reached my community on Facebook. I need to do this for my own community in Irving, Texas.
Mhm.
So I let Hannah's mom know. I said, look, I want to do this on a bigger scale. I want the community to be involved. I want people to be able to come together to be able to grieve and mourn and just remember the life of their loved one. And so I went to the Irving Parks and Recreation and I had a meeting with their manager, Scott Prosno, and I told him my story. And he was just so touched by my story. And he said, you know what? I want to help you. I am going to help you in any way that I can. So we looked at a couple of locations and he got with the Irving Archives Museum, which was just brand new, like they just renovated the whole thing. And he pitched the idea at them and they said, you know what, there's just not a better time to do it. Like, absolutely, we would love to help her. And so we set a date, we met, and we started putting up 206 pictures. And then I said, I want to add the yellow heart because this is the symbol of COVID.
Mhm.
But I want to do something different. I don't want it to be just a plain heart. Like, I want I want to humanize these numbers. This is what we need to do. So I started writing names in the hearts, and I started writing the dates of when we lost our loved ones in those hearts. And when people seen the memorial and seen their loved one's name on that wall,
Mhm.
it just like triggered something. Um, Not knowing how big this would be, we had over 2,000 names from across the world.
Wow.
Um, and it just, people started approaching me and they were like, you have no idea what it means to me to see my loved one's name on that wall being remembered, like not by a number, not just a symbol, but their name. And to see these silhouettes that were collaborated with that was just so powerful. Um, I was in the museum one day because I would constantly go and check on the memorial, and a man that worked for the city came up to me and he said, "Isn't this just so sad and beautiful at the same time?" He said, "Whoever created this was like, they they're just amazing for doing this." And I looked at him and I said, "I'm the creator." and he said, "Oh my God." He's like, "Are you serious?" And I said, "Yeah." I go, "I lost my mom to COVID." And he broke down and he started crying and he said, "I added three names to your wall and they were all my friends and my family." And I said, "I'm just so sorry for your loss." I said, "But this is why I created this, because not only did I need this, but the whole world needs this.
Mhm.
They need to know that their loved ones are important. They deserve to be honored. They deserve to be remembered. They deserve for us to give them what they did not get in their death." And so it's gone everywhere and it's growing, as we speak.
Mhm.
I had the opportunity and I was invited to go to the National Mall and bring the memorial with me, for the vaccine rally, to get Biden to agree to distribute vaccines all over the world. So that was such an honor for me to be involved with that. Um, I am going back to Washington at the end of the month to put an exhibit up at Creative Grounds DC.
Hmm.
I will give the families in DC a chance to come and tell their stories, to pay tribute to their loved ones. That exhibit will be on display for maybe a month or maybe longer. Um, but it will turn into a traveling memorial.
Mhm.
So we that will be our third traveling memorial that Yellow Heart Memorial has right now.
Yeah. Would you like to see it done on, a state level with volunteers in every state or even become a national memorial? We have the Vietnam Wall in Washington, D.C., and the 9/11 memorial. I It would be an amazing thing to have some sort of national memorial with every name.
Absolutely. So when we have our memorials, we actually try and get our local officials involved.
Mhm.
Right now, I have a chapter in California. I have a chapter in Pennsylvania. I have a chapter in Missouri, and we just launched a chapter in New York. But Senator Casey actually spoke at one of the memorials in Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
So we're trying to get these officials involved. We need them to see the faces of these families that have lost to COVID firsthand, in person, so that they can see the depth of hurt that we are all experiencing.
Mhm.
And as far as monuments and memorials, yes, that is a goal. We are actually going to have the very first permanent memorial in Jefferson County, Missouri. They are having hearts, bronze hearts made with every person in Jefferson County's name engraved on them. That will be that should be unveiled, like, I think in August. I asked them to wait until my return from New York, um, so that I can be present for the very first permanent memorial.
Mhm.
We do want to have these on a local level, and we do need one on a national level.
Mhm.
We don't want to be like the 1918 Spanish flu, where you can't go anywhere in the United States and see a memorial that's dedicated to them.
Yeah.
There's no monuments, there's no memorials. You have to either look it up or you have to read about it. And we don't need to make that mistake twice. Um, this was the second pandemic that's happened since then, like this, that was then, this is now, this is
Mhm.
our time, which of course, things are so much different now. We have social media, we've got all this technology. Um, but just to see that in person, it's a reminder for us all that we went through this and we overcame it,
Mhm.
but we still have people that we have to remember that actually lost their lives in the pandemic itself.
Mhm.
So that's the importance of these memorials and these monuments, is people that pass by, they are going to know what that is, and they're going to know each name on that wall, or however these monuments and memorials are created, um, why their names are there, and what happened, and what our world went through in
Yeah.
that period of time.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's important now in a time when a lot of the news and a lot of um, the what we're hearing is to go back to normal, that COVID is over, almost over, and, f you know, going back to normal is not something I'll ever be able to do, because of my mom. I don't know how you feel, but it's like for me, it's it's not gonna end, you know?
Yeah.
I'm gonna still be talking about my mom and still talking about what happened to her and still trying to make change,
Hmm.
and that's what you're doing too. It's a lot of people just want things to go back to the way they were, and
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm having a very hard time dealing with the world moving forward,
Mhm,
only because I feel like we are doing this prematurely, with the new variants that are starting to pop up, and them, mentioning, meaning, like Dr. Fauci and their team, mentioning that we may be looking at having to get a booster against
mhm,
this new Delta variant that is out there, that is killing people in India at a rapid rate. It is now here in the United States.
mhm,
We have a population that is not vaccinated and don't even have a vaccine, which is our children.
mhm,
We have a rising cases in teenagers from 12 to 15 that are currently in the hospital, or they are on a ventilator.
mhm.
They haven't had a death, thank God, but they're still in the hospital. They're still fighting.
Yeah.
And we all know from experience that that virus could take a turn at any moment,
Mhm.
and it could be tragic.
Yeah.
So I don't think that we are at the point to celebrate that we are completely out of this pandemic, because not only are we involved, and I feel like the United States is kind of singling themselves out, but
Mhm,
what they're failing to realize is that India is in crisis. Brazil is in crisis. This is still going on, even
Yeah.
outside of the United States, and it still affects us because we are a diverse country. And no matter how or which way you look at it, somebody's friend, relative, or someone that they're close to is somewhere else in the world where the crisis is happening.
Yeah.
So it still affects people in the United States, even though it's not here at home.
Yeah.
And so I think that that is something that they're failing to realize, you know? Um, we have a big population of people from India here. And I'm more than sure that so many people that live here in the United States have had relatives in India that have died from COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one question. What do you say to people who say COVID isn't real?
Um, in the very beginning, I was very angry about people that are ignorant to facts. And I um, I came to terms with, you can't save everybody. The only thing that I can do is use my story of what I've been through, losing the most important person in my life, um, to try and make other people realize, like, this is real. This is something that we went through, and 600,000 plus families have gone through.
Hmm.
Um, Now, it is unfortunate because I have had friends that had that mindset, and they've either lost somebody very close to them to COVID before they changed their mind, or they almost lost somebody to COVID and now are long haulers.
Hmm.
And it's unfortunate that people that don't think the virus is real have to wait for death to knock at their front door
Yeah.
so that they will open their eyes and they will say, "Oh my God, it is real," or to survive and have to deal with the health complications every single day of their life from being a long hauler.
Yeah.
So, the only thing that I can do is keep trying to bring awareness, trying to keep my mom and everybody else's loved ones' memory alive,
Hmm.
um, and stay vigilant myself and make sure that my family is protected.
Yeah.
At this point, our own government has basically said, and this has been from the very beginning of the pandemic, it's every man for themselves. So, whatever decision you make, if you decide to wear a mask, if you don't, um, you're putting yourself at risk to contract the virus.
Hmm.
And if you're not vaccinated, that's even a greater risk. But you're playing Russian roulette with your own life.
Hmm.
You don't know if you're going to be asymptomatic. You don't know if you're going to have mild symptoms. You don't know if you're going to end up on a ventilator. You don't know if you're going to die.
Yeah. If there was any person you would like to sort of call out or name by name that you feel like could have done more, like for me, my person is the governor of Oregon, Governor Kate Brown. I wrote her so many letters. I tried so many different ways to reach her, to get her to change her policies so that families could get back to being more involved in what was happening. And I really hold a lot of her policies responsible for what's happened here in Oregon. Is there anybody like that for you where you just feel if they had done more or if they had listened or if they had changed their mind, things would be different?
Um, you know, I did an honest obit on my mom, and
Mhm.
it was published in the Fort Worth paper, and I basically blamed Governor Abbott for not calling a mask mandate until it was basically too late.
Mhm.
I hold him responsible for a lot of what's happened. Um, for my mom contracting the virus, for there not being a mask mandate. I think that more could have been done, and it was done too little, too late.
Yeah.
You know, I hold the Trump administration responsible for hiding information from their country, knowing the danger that we were going to be in.
Mhm.
Um, they played a big role in how we responded,
Mhm.
and that to me was, another thing is like we were failed by our governments on all levels.
Yeah, I agree. So, is there some place people can go online to find out information about the Yellow Heart Memorial? And if they wanted to do one in their community, how would they find you and get a hold of you?
Yeah, so we do have a Facebook page. It is called Yellow Heart Memorial. We have our logo on the Facebook page. It has the yellow heart with my mom and Cal Schunfeld. That's Hannah's grandfather. We put both of them on the logo. So that's how you can identify our Facebook page. Um, we also have an Instagram, which is Yellow Heart Memorial. And then I have www.yellowheartmemorial.com. We have information on there. We have pictures of our memorials that have happened in different locations, which we are all actually adding to that. We also have a letter that helps people approach wherever you're wanting to have a memorial. So, like me, for instance, I had to approach my manager for the Parks and Recs department. So we created a letter to kind of hand that to them and say, look, this is what I'm trying to do. And it's pretty self explanatory. And it's as simple as someone going on our website and then printing it off. Um, People that are interested in having a yellow heart memorial, they usually contact me either by email, which is yellowheartmemorial@gmail.com, or they usually just reach out to me through Facebook.
Mhm.
Um, and if they want to have a Yellow Heart Memorial, what we do is first we find a location for them and we get an approval. And then our next step is we create a package. And so our package consists of we have Hannah, the artist, draw a picture of your loved one. We have a Yellow Heart Memorial sign, which you display at your memorial. We give you the number of hearts that you request, which are all yellow hearts. We send that. We also send you 5 Yellow Heart Memorial awareness bracelets, which we created those yellow awareness bracelets for COVID. And then, we add all of the tools and material in those packages, and then we mail those out to you.
Hmm.
We teach you how to reach out to your communities or your Facebook's support groups so that you can start gathering names to put in those hearts. We also help you by reaching out to local media, doing like a press release to let them know, like, hey, we're having this memorial. We would love it if you could, join us. You're welcome to come to the memorial, add your loved one's name to a heart, and place it at the memorial. We also reach out to local officials to get them involved as well, to speak to the families that have lost to COVID. So we do all of this with you. We do not charge for our packages. only because when we started this in the very beginning, um, I had so many people that helped me, and I wanted to do the same thing and just pay it forward. And
Hmm.
so we do not charge for our packages. We just, want people to, help us spread awareness and, have these memorials in their community. Every person that has had a memorial has come back and said, "You have no idea how healing this was for me." And everybody that was involved, like the families that showed up,
Hmm.
it did a great deal of healing for them. And so, it's changing people, as far as, being able to come together and mourn with each other. Like I said before, it's totally needed, especially now we're in a crucial time in our country where the country is so ready to move forward, and we all feel like, where do we go?
Hmm.
Feel like we're being left behind. Um, but we have to catch that moment, and we have to, now more than ever, have these memorials so that we can't move forward and act like this never happened.
Yeah. Wow. You're it's amazing how much you're doing. I was just sitting there listening to everything that you do to help somebody set one of these up, and it's remarkable what you, one person, have done that helps so many. It's amazing, and I appreciate so much that you took the time to talk to me today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I wanted to, like I said before, this was something that I needed myself. And going through such a different, like, tragic death. These are deaths like no other.
Mhm.
I knew that so many other people out there needed it as well. And I wanted to include the world in what we were doing. And so I'm glad that it turned into what it did. I'm glad that it turned into a movement. I'm glad that it's bringing healing, and I'm glad that it's bringing community together, because even our own immediate families, they don't understand us.
No, they
My
don't.
immediate family does not understand me, but I have a family in grief, and
Mhm.
I'm grateful for every person that has supported us. I'm grateful for every person that has stepped forward and had the courage, because it's hard. It's
Mhm.
hard to keep yourself together and have these memorials knowing what you're going through yourself. But I'm just grateful for those people to have the strength to step forward for their own community and to bring something like this to their community that they need as well.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of people, they say, "You know what? Thank you for starting this, for doing this." And I'm the one that needs to thank everybody, because without them, Yellow Heart Memorial would not be what it is today. Um, and they have been my rock through this. They have been what I have leaned on to get through what I've gone through. I
Yeah.
mean, so I am just humbled by everything that has happened. I'm humbled by all of the, great people, the beautiful souls that I have met through this, Yellow Heart Memorial. Um, like I said, there's quite a few of them that I refer to now as my family. Um, and so I'm just eternally grateful for each and every one of them, and I'm just glad that this has turned into, a positive and, healing memorial for people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, a positive and healing memorial, because that's what we need.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I appreciate you. taking your time to have me, and speaking with me. And, I'm grateful for any opportunity that we have, to send our messages out and to let people know that we are here. Um, the fight isn't over. And,
Hmm.
you know, and I'm sorry about your loss as well, and
Yeah.
just know that, we are here and we are going to keep our loved ones' memories alive. Like, we absolutely refuse to have them drowned out by the victories that are going on around us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. And that's the show, everyone. If you've lost a loved one to COVID and would like to share your story on the show, please send me an email. My email address is forthosewelostpodcast@gmail.com. If you like this episode, please share the show. Share it with your friends, share it on your social media, and once you've done that, rate and review this podcast on your favorite listening platform. And then go rate it on Apple Podcast, because that's where most of our new listeners come from. Ratings and reviews are the main way this podcast finds new listeners. So please share the show. Until next time.